this is the last stop for this part of the program, and then we'll head over to the artillery piece. So I do want to say, when we get over there, do not be shy, because one of the reasons I brought Al here today is to give you all the chance, if you want to work a field piece. So like, I know Gary has done this, right, at the NSSA, but there are many, I mean, how many of you ever worked a field piece before in your life?
No.
Right, so, yeah, well, Sam, you don't count. You know. So this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So, as I said, closer to the position of Adams's battery, this whole area, you know, all throughout that night of July the 18th, is going to be filled with thousands of troops from Ricketts Division of the 6th Corps. There are going to be soldiers from Thoburn's command, and I will say that while this artillery duel is going on that night until probably close to midnight, there are some awkward moments here in these fields, because guys from Thoburn's division are asking men in Ricketts' command, why didn't you come across and help us? And so what Ricketts' enlisted men are saying is, we wanted very much to help you, but Ricketts wouldn't allow it. And so there were all kinds of rumors that were circulating. You know, Ricketts is a coward. Horatio Wright wanted to discredit George Crook. He did it on purpose. Whatever the case might be, nonetheless, the soldiers in Thoburn's command believed that with the artillery, the effectiveness of the artillery fire coming from the mountains, that if you would have taken the 5,000 guys from here and put them over there, the Federals would have had numerical superiority. They already had artillery superiority. This could have easily ended in a clear-cut Union victory, but it didn't, because Ricketts refused to cross. So the question now becomes, if they refuse to cross, why are they still here? So once Thoburn's men come back across the river, there is a challenge. And the challenge is making certain that the wounded, and there are more than 300 Union soldiers wounded at the battle, are brought from the western shore over to the eastern side of the Shenandoah. So Ricketts' command are providing support to help evacuate wounded from that side to this side of the river. That's why they're here. Now, while they are doing that, like, you have regiments like the 2nd Rhode Island. So if you've read Elijah Hunt Rhodes' diary, he's 2nd Rhode Island. He is picketing with his men the banks of the Shenandoah. Colonel Oliver Edwards in the 37th Massachusetts, they are picketing the banks of the Shenandoah. But while the rest of Ricketts' division is here, there are some Confederate artillery shells that are going to just land right in the midst of these guys. So somewhere in this vicinity, it's hard to pinpoint, right, without, I mean, there are no monuments on this battlefield, and we haven't found a dog tag that says this guy was here, but somewhere in this general vicinity would have been soldiers from the 15th New Jersey Infantry. And so there was a shell, presumably based on our location from Chapman's battery, that ends up landing well short of Adams's battery in the Heights, and it lands in the midst of the 15th New Jersey. There are several soldiers who are wounded, one of whom is killed, Corporal Watson Chambers. And stories like Watson Chambers, I think, are useful reminders about something that sometimes people forget on a battlefield. What happens on a battlefield has ripple effects. So when Watson Chambers is killed outright by Confederate artillery late on the night of July 18th, his wife, back home in Sussex County, New Jersey, his wife Mary, she becomes a widow. His son Lorenzo becomes a half orphan. And so there are, not just at this battle, but all battles, for Union soldiers at least, if you are married and leave behind children, those you leave behind, they have the right to file a claim with the Federal Pension Bureau to get a widow's pension. And Corporal Chambers' wife received $8 a month from the federal government, and an additional $2 for Lorenzo until he hit the age of 16. And so, you know, people, I said it earlier in the tour, you know, they might not think Cool Spring is a big engagement. For someone like Julian Weir, it was a big engagement because it gave him an opportunity to take a little bit of the tarnish off of his reputation. For someone like Mary Chambers, it is a big engagement because it takes away her husband. It takes away Lorenzo's father. Now, as Federals are dealing over here with the effects of that, we've already discussed how eventually the Confederate guns are going to be driven off. By about midnight, the firing stops. And so what's going to happen at midnight, there are some trees, not a lot of trees, there are some trees along the banks of the river where soldiers from the 2nd Rhode Island and 37th Massachusetts are going to scale those trees. And they are going to look for Confederates on the other side. And it's almost a full moon. A full moon was July 19th. So it's a clear night. It's almost full. And they are shooting at Confederates they can see in the distance that night. Now, this battle tactically is a Confederate victory, right? Because the Federals, they give ground. But the more that I study this fight, the more it becomes clearer to me that neither side is celebrating here. Even the Confederates, who can claim a tactical victory because the Federals gave way and they withdrew to this side of the river, they are frustrated. Some of these guys are frustrated because, you know, they lost a friend, they lost a comrade. Some of them are frustrated because of the inability of the Confederate batteries to drive off the Union guns. And one of those guys who was frustrated is this guy right here, John Alexander Stikelether. So Stikelether was the color bearer of the 4th North Carolina. He had lost his 2 best friends within seconds of each other during one of those 4 assaults the Confederates made, Martin Snow and Sidney Bustle. Both of them were killed instantly, shot through the neck. And he had to carry this guilt with him for the rest of his life because he was carrying the regimental flag. And he thought the whole reason his buddies were dead was because of him, because the infantry were focused on the flag, but were shooting to the left or to the right and couldn't hit the color bearer. So that was a source of frustration for him. But what also was a source of frustration for him was the inability of those Confederate guns to drive off the Union cannon. And this is what he wrote. He said, "We would have had no difficulty in capturing all the Yankees on this side of the river in a short time, but for a fact that the enemy artillery on the heights was unable to pour a deadly fire into our ranks with impunity." And so this is, I think, for both armies, a lost opportunity. It's a lost opportunity for the Federals because Ricketts doesn't support. It's a lost opportunity for Early because Early's cannon can't drive those cannon off. So no one is satisfied. What is sad about this engagement, there are a lot of things that are sad, but one of the things that's sad is that you have 13,000 guys engaged, nearly 1,000 casualties total, and it really achieves nothing. And Assistant Secretary of War Charles Dana, when he learned about the battle here, he basically wrote in his diary, "We had this pursuit. Wright pursues Early, fights him along the banks of the Shenandoah, and nothing was gained as a result, other than additional loss of human life and destruction and tragedy and generational change for people like Corporal Chambers' widow and son." So I know that's a really sad, pessimistic note, but Eli has me in class, and that's just the way I am. But, so are there any questions before we head over to the artillery? Yes.
So after this battle, Horatio Wright retreats back to Washington, right? So was he, and I got in a dispute with a guy I was giving a tour with about this.
Mm-hmm.
Was he ordered to go back to Washington, or did he do that on his own volition?
Right.
Because he was criticized by Charles Dana and Lincoln for leaving.
Yes. It's a great question. So I don't know how your argument ended out.
It was.
So, Alex, you get in the middle.
I was saying he did it on his own volition.
He
The
did.
other guy said he was ordered to do it.
He did. So Horatio Wright is the commander. On the 20th of July, so the 19th of July, there is some minor skirmishing along the banks, nothing of any significance. The 20th, Jubal Early finds out William Averell is moving from Martinsburg toward Winchester, and he doesn't want to have Horatio Wright in Snickers Gap, and then Early's here, and then, you know, Federals in Winchester, so he pulls out. When he pulls out, the Federal Army recrosses, and that's when they're able to see the condition of the wounded and try to reclaim some of the dead. Horatio Wright is going to pursue a few miles west toward Berryville. He doesn't go far beyond Berryville. If he would have moved closer to Winchester, he would have seen that Stephen Dodson Ramser's division is still there, and he could have engaged Ramser, and that could have been potentially the end of the fighting in the valley. But Horatio Wright never wanted to be in the valley. And Horatio Wright, you know, he is here, I think this is a reluctant command for him. He wants to be at Petersburg because Horatio Wright loves publicity. And so he doesn't think he's going to get publicity fighting in the valley. And so he moves a couple miles toward Berryville. He's like, Confederates are gone, Early's retreating, he's heading to Petersburg, no problem. And it is under his own volition that he goes away. And that sets up for what happens, you know, 4 days later at Kernstown.
So I was right?
You are right. That's right.
Thank you.
You are correct.
Can you speak to the drownings that took place on the retreat?
Yes. So if you walk this trail, this direction about a half a mile, there is a very deep part of the Shenandoah River called Parker's Hole. There's an interpretive sign there. But this is, you know, the Shenandoah River is pretty much fordable at any point except Parker's Hole. So it's about anywhere from 15 to 30 feet deep. We actually mapped the bottom of the river a couple years ago, and at that point it was like 20 to 25 feet deep. And so there are Union soldiers that night who are retreating back to this side who don't know what's there, because they cross down here and they plunge into this water and they drown and they die. And there are several soldiers, I think 4 or 5, that my students and I years ago, and my wife, identified who drowned in that river, and all the likelihood that their remains are still there. Because we do have accounts from fishermen or fisher people who are dropping a line down and in the 1930s and pulling up artifacts from the battle. And somebody has asked, like, you ever go down there? I'm like, I'm not that adventurous, so if you're a scuba diver and want to do that, go down there and tell me what you find.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Did Judge Parker's mansion receive any damage from the artillery fire?
That's a great question. Remarkably, no. So Judge Parker, his primary residence is in Winchester. So he inherited the farm from his dad when he died in 1840. He does lease out the property. The guy who is living out here, I believe his name is Robinson, he wrote a letter to Parker basically saying the plantation's trashed. But he doesn't mention like significant damage to the house, which is kind of remarkable when you think about it, because you've got Weir's battery is right there. And you know, if the Confederate gunners aren't shooting, like fortunately they were shooting further to the left and not to the right. But yeah, remarkably, I don't think it takes significant damage.
Just as in today, technology plays a huge effect on military engagement. And part of the, it sounds like part of the federal artillery had some advantage in technology. And, you know, if the Young's dismounted cavalry had kept their carbines, which had an extreme advantage, things might have turned out entirely different.
Yeah, possible. And to follow up, Richard, on that point, people always ask, why did they make them trade in their carbines? And it's a matter of supply, right? So you could theoretically have guys with Sharps and Smiths and Maynards and Gallaghers and Stars, and you have all this different ammunition that's not interchangeable as where it is with a musket. And so they were thinking it would be better. Clearly not the case.
But you can have an infantry using a cavalry carbine easily, as long as you can supply it.
Right.
It's real difficult to take a Springfield or an Enfield and operate on a horse.
Right.
So they needed to reissue those to the other cavalry guys. So
yeah, and the interesting thing too, we talk about firearms. There's one entire regiment in Ricketts Division that has Spencer repeating rifles, and that's the 37th Massachusetts. So when they're out here picketing on the night of the 18th, that's what they're out here using. And there was Confederates on the other side saying, my God, like, why are they firing so fast? And then they realize they're shooting Spencers. So again, you think about how troops were, and it's always fun to play the what if game, but like, what if Ricketts' division was over there first? You had an entire regiment with Spencer rifles, you know, again, things could have gone very different. I don't know what I would write about in the valley, because this could have ended all the fighting in the valley.
I have an ancestor that was in the 6th Maryland. Would they have been in this area with the rest of Ricketts' division?
Yeah, basically all throughout this whole vast expanse. Yep. Anything else? All right, so we are going to go over here now to artillery.